Chapter 4. Blood Left Behind. The next morning I woke early and sat by the window. The sun was just rising and the sky was brightening. I stretched and got up. If the wolves were still in the area, then maybe I could find them. I felt compelled to try to help. After breakfast, I made my way outside and started walking toward the village. Suddenly, in the middle of the road, there was blood. Concerned, I followed the trail. I was shocked to find it led to a dead deer. Blood was splattered everywhere. "Who did this?" I called. Hunting was common, of course, but to leave a carcass like this in the street. No one answered, but I heard footsteps. In the alley, near where I found the deer, was a large wolf. He looked up at me with his yellow eyes. The wolf was huge and lean. His fur was glossy black. His ears were pointed. His mouth opened wide. Fear flooded through me. Maybe it followed the smell of blood from the deer? I thought to run, but I couldn't. Some deep instinct told me if I ran, it would kill me. Instead, I stood frozen and watched. The wolf growled low in his throat. He moved closer to me. "Don't come any closer," I warned. The wolf stopped and stared at me. Did it actually understand me? "Go away," I cried out. The wolf let out a frightening roar and charged. I screamed and ran. I scrambled along the alleyway, trying to get away from the wolf, but suddenly the wolf changed direction. It shot down between a row of houses and disappeared. My heart raced. I didn't want to lose track of it. But what could I do? I had no weapons. Did it listen to me? I was so confused. And why was it in the village? Did someone leave the deer carcass so the wolves would come? I couldn't stop thinking about the wolf. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, that the deer carcass was some random accident, that the wolf smelled the blood and came looking for a meal, or the wolf chased the deer into the village and killed it here. But it ran off. Wasn't that good? It was strange, though. No one else in the village saw it or heard it, and it was in the middle of the street. Whatever it was, I could not shake the feeling that there was danger ahead. I went to the village square to find someone to tell about what happened. As I entered, I could see several villagers milling around. They all had their heads bowed. A couple women and men were crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The wolves are back," one of the older men said. "Did you see one too?" I asked. "I did," another man said. He shook his head. "I heard them howling last night. Then I woke up and found this." He held up a bloody rag. "Where did you find that?" I asked. "In my yard. It looks like it was torn from a shirt." "That's exactly right," a woman said. She sniffed. "There's been blood found everywhere in the village, torn rags, small pools." Adam came from a group of others and approached me. "There doesn't appear to be anyone missing, but not everyone is accounted for." I gasped. "I found a deer carcass in the alley, and a wolf was here." Adam's eyes darkened. "I've a feeling there's blood everywhere as someone is leading the wolves here to the village." I was wondering the same thing. "What do you think they want? Why would someone do that?" I asked. Adam shook his head. "I don't know, but whoever is behind this is going to regret it." There was an immediate group of young men who took up guarding around the village. Many of us attempted to clean up what blood we could find. I knew something was wrong. Something bad was happening. As soon as I could, I needed to go and talk to grandmother. It wasn't safe. She had to come to the village. I had to convince her. The walk through the forest was peaceful after the morning's events. The air was warm and smelled fresh, like springtime. I padded over fallen logs and crossed a stream. The sun shone down on me and warmed my back. The sounds of nature surrounded me. I loved the forest. It was a shame such things were happening now. I got to grandmother's house in the woods safely. I knocked at the door. When she didn't answer, I opened it. She was sitting in a chair at the table. Her hands were clasped together and she was rocking back and forth. She looked miserable. "Grandmother?" I called to her softly. Her head snapped up and she smiled at me. "Oh, hello, dear." "Are you okay?" I asked. Yes, she said. "You can come in. I'd love some company." I stepped into the house and shut the door behind me. "Grandmother, there's been some trouble. Someone is trying to lead wolves into the village." I told her about how I found the deer carcass that morning. I told her how the wolf had chased me in the alley. "I'll bet that was scary," she said. "Yes. Can you please come to the village with me? You shouldn't be out here alone. It isn't safe." "I can't do that," she said. "Don't worry about me." "Grandmother, this is serious." She patted my cheek gently. "Sweetheart, I'm fine. The wolves don't bother me here. I haven't seen any. I sighed. You're probably right, grandmother, but I really don't feel comfortable leaving you here. It's okay, dear, I promise. Now go and enjoy your day. I didn't want to leave her alone. Maybe I could stay over tonight, I asked her. I could keep you company. She chuckled. Oh, you are always welcome here. I smiled. Then I guess I'll go and get ready. I left the house and headed for the village. I raced down the path. About halfway through was when I heard the noise, the wailing. I froze. My heart hammered against my chest. I listened closely. There was a flurry of motion in the bushes behind me, heading straight toward grandmother's house. More than one wolf. I turned around and ran back to grandmother's house. I pounded on the door. When she didn't answer, I opened it. The room was dark. I peeked inside. Grandmother was lying on the floor beside the bed. No blood, but she was unconscious. I ran to her side and did my best to put her in the bed. Grandmother, I whispered. No answer. Her eyes remained closed. I checked for a heartbeat. She was alive. I needed help, but I couldn't leave her alone. I went to the door, staring out. Is anyone out there? I shouted. Please help. Who is it? A voice called. Surprised there was actually an answer. Please come. It was just moments, but then Yuan appeared, tall and carrying his hunting bow at his back. I went to him with tears in my eyes. Please, Yuan. My grandmother. He nodded and squeezed my hand. Stay with her. Don't let her get cold. I nodded. Yuan went outside. I waited with grandmother. After a while, her breathing became more regular. It took a half hour, but eventually Yuan returned with the village doctor. The doctor examined grandmother. He went over her vitals and then sat down next to us. He looked at grandmother with concern and said, She might be okay, but she should rest. We shouldn't move her. She can't stay, I said. There's wolves. One of them must have attacked her. I looked at Yuan. He looked at me with disbelief. There's no way. They were out there, Yuan. Wolves. I saw one. Yuan's eyes darkened. Then the only way to solve this is if we hunt them down. I nodded. We need to protect the village. We can't let them hurt anyone else. Yuan put his hand on my shoulder. You stay with her. I'll escort the doctor back to the village. I'll be back.